Hello and welcome back to Not Without My Sister, your favourite new podcast, presented by me, Rosemary McCabe.
And me, Beatrice McCabe.
Hello and welcome to Not Without My Sister, a podcast about sisterhood, friendship, relationships, and all of the questions that we have about life that are yet unanswered.
And none of the answers.
Yeah, we've absolutely none
That
of the
was
answers.
literally the conversation.
And no intelligent questions.
That was the conversation we've been having all day. What is this about? What is life about? We have none of the answers, and yet we're willing to talk about all of it with you and have none of the answers.
For an hour. Yeah.
And today we thought it would
Thanks
be
for
great
listening.
to talk about how we have none of the answers about body positivity or bodies
Or body negativity.
or bodies in general, right? Having grown up with bodies, I think we should probably be experts. We are experts. Are we experts on our own bodies? I don't want to actually say. Actually, I'm not. I'm entirely not an expert on my body or anybody else's body.
I was just about to say, like, my body does at least 10 things a day that I'm like, what the was that?
Yeah, I agree.
TMI?
You know, your body does. Your body does. But I did think it was interesting today when we were talking earlier on, and we were discussing, you know, how I think that you have a very interesting perspective on this because you have obviously advocated for body positivity or BOPO, right, for all the cool kids.
Mm-hmm.
And you're a trainer, right? And you've been out there in the public eye. And then you made the good point that I also have a different perspective because I've worked in fashion for a long time. And I've definitely not been fashion's idea of a fashionable body, right?
Yeah, but I mean, I think just to clarify, my point wasn't you've worked in fashion and you don't quote unquote fit, but I was more kind of saying, as a personal trainer, I spent a lot of time saying to people, other people aren't looking at your body. Nobody cares what you look like. You know, your body needs to be functional more than it needs to be aesthetically pleasing. Whereas in your industry, the absolute opposite of all of those statements will be true.
Yeah, that's actually,
You know what I mean?
that's
That, like-
totally true. I think I spent more time around people who spend a lot of time judging other people's bodies, whether it's for catwalks, it's for photo shoots, or it's just for like pure negative bitchiness, to be honest. Like just
like
judgment,
casual past remarkability.
just total judgmentalness. But also like, I mean, I started working 20 years, what age am I now? 32? So 20 years ago, right? And 41. 20 years ago. And like it wasn't ever like, this is fine, right? I totally think that the whole time that I was working, I registered every single one of these, you know, indignities as an unfair comment or an unjust comment or whatever, but it was not the same, I think, pressure, etc., that's happening now since just Me Too and all of the, you know, unrest that's happening at the moment. But there's been a movement towards, in a weird way, even before Me Too, there was the movement towards, you know, body diversity, etc. But like, what does that really mean? And even if it's diverse, does it actually, you know, do you feel more accepted? Do you feel more okay out there in the world? Or do you just feel like, great, other people are being accepted, therefore I'm okay? Like, does it make a difference to your actual life?
Yeah, like great that there are different types of beauty now, but most of them are still unattainable for the average person. I feel like it's kind of when like fitness influencers got really big and, you know, there are all these kind of slogans like strong is the new skinny and like, you know, fit is the new X or whatever. And I felt like it was just telling women another way that they should be when actually for most of us, we don't have visible abs and we don't, you know what I mean? Like all these different things. And even when you see now, like I find it really difficult to see myself in body positive activists or in fat activists because we all have completely different bodies. And like I happen to have certain roles on my tummy that I've never seen represented. And so I will see these like beautiful plus size women and I'll kind of think like, oh, well, it's well for them because they might be fat or they might be bigger than me, but they still have really flat tummies and they're beautiful. You know what I mean? There's still this like absolute like,
I mean, they're still models. They're still models, right? You know, they're still models. And I think, you know, as you were talking there, I was going like, oh my God, I remember how much you used to drive me mad when it's not just about my body doesn't fit this preconception of being a model. But it's also about like, I don't necessarily have time. And I know everybody's going to say that's an excuse. Like you always have time. Everybody has time. But like, I don't necessarily have time to go, and all this stuff takes time. Everything is a choice, right? So it's hard to, it's hard to prioritize. Like, what are the things that you prioritize? Like, I want to not be, I want to look good, but I also want to have a life. I want to do the things that I want to do. You know, how do you do these things? And like, how do you send a message to your kids that like these things are important and this time for yourself is important, but at the same time, it's not overwhelming. Because I think living with my kids, you even saw how this is, we never talk about bodies or being fat or being thin. We never, well, no. I mean, I think we never do. And even now I kind of question, do I sometimes, does it slip up and does it slip out and I don't even notice, you know? But I think you even saw from my kids, like, it doesn't matter if you talk about it, like they hear it everywhere, and they hear it at school, they hear it on TV, they hear it through every social media channel, right?
Yeah. I mean, I just walked into the living room where my boyfriend's kids were watching SpongeBob, and one of the characters was talking about how one of the other characters had loads of money or was very affluent, and his daughter was really fat as a result. I was basically saying, like, look at her, she's huge. And I was like, those are the kind of, like, even though these are obviously anthropomorphic characters, so nobody's really expecting the whale to be skinny, quote unquote, it's still like that kind of thing goes in with kids. Like, it goes in so much, we don't even realize it.
Yeah, but like, even take whatever that TV show we watched, that extremely highbrow television show was, like, Magnolia, what was it called? Happy Magnolias? Sweet Magnolias,
as if you don't remember.
I don't remember.
You literally said the name of it an hour ago. You're just trying to make yourself sound better now.
No. I thought I made up that name.
What was it called? Something Magnolias.
Sweet Magnolias.
Sweet Magnolias.
I'm literally about to give out about myself, so like, shut it.
Your favorite new show.
It is. Well, I mean, it's extremely religious, so that doesn't exactly, you know. Anyway, sit too well with me. I mean, I think in episode 1, she said God, Jesus, and prayer about 14 times. And I was like, I'm not sure about this, especially since I recommended it. But anyway, since I suggested we watch it. Anyway, and there are 3 main characters, and one of whom is the, you know, white redhead, one of whom is the person of color, and one of whom is, as I referred to, almost super slagged by you, as the fat chef. But like, she is the fat chef, right? That's the, you can tell they're like, let's cast a fat chef, right?
Yes.
Thank you. I'm like,
and I mean,
right.
Also, like, but that's definitely a trope, as in Gilmore Girls, which is a very similar show to this, actually, in kind of in flavor. Like, it's quite wholesome, and there's not as much religion, but it's, you know, small town wholesome. There's also a fat chef.
But 100%. But
and I feel like it's kind of
but in the car the other day
archetype.
when I said, like, hey, you know, so we're watching this TV show, and I was like, oh, the fat chef, and my son goes, you shouldn't say the word fat. I thought that was kind of interesting, right? It's like, you shouldn't say the word, you shouldn't say fat. It's a negative word. I thought it was interesting, like, your reaction to him.
Yeah, well, I mean, I always try to, and it's kind of annoying because, like, I understand that they're just kids, and I also understand that a lot of the time when we talk about, you know, fat or thin, like, we don't want our kids going into school and being like, you're fat to someone. Do you know what I mean?
No,
so,
but
like,
I mean,
we do kind
they do though, because I mean, we've heard them around the house, you know, fat so.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
you know, we hear them saying 100%, it as,
but like,
we hear them saying it as, you know, you're stupid and you're fat, and like, I mean,
yeah,
maybe they are a little bit chubbier under lockdown, but like, it's not. This is not a thing, you know. This is not something that they've learned here as an insult. Like, this is something that they know to be a negative thing that they can say to each other, you know.
Yeah, that it's this pejorative term that is used in society, and like, there's no getting away from that. But like, I'm always. Like, I would try with your kids. And actually, I had a similar conversation with one of Brandon's kids yesterday, where I would try and go, you know, fat isn't a positive or a negative. It's just a description. Some people are fat and some people are thin. And then they'll go, but it's not nice to call someone fat, right? And on the one hand, I'm going, well, if someone describes me as a bit fat, I'm like, that's fine. I am a bit fat. But if they're at school and they're going, you're fat, you obviously don't want them saying to other people. So like, it's such a difficult nuance to explain to kids.
But I thought it was funny.
Well.
It was funny when you were talking to Nash and you were like, hey, you know, it's just a description. Like, if I'm fat, I'm fat. If they're thin, they're thin. They're born that way, or they live that way, or whatever. Like, it doesn't cast aspersions on your character. And he goes, totally understand. He's like, but it's still really negative. I thought that was interesting, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, the takeaway is he fundamentally understands, but it's still a weapon there to be used, you know?
Yeah.
And I think,
I mean,
go on.
No,
you go on. God, we're so polite tonight.
No,
it's like
you
not
go
even
on.
normal.
It's only because we can't see each other and roll our eyes at each other.
100% if you were here, I'd be like entirely talking over, like, shut up. Don't even care what you have to say. But I was going to say, like, I've entirely experienced this. Like, I have, all my life was fat, have been fat. I mean, you were reminding me today that at 6 months as a baby, a memory I do not have, my mother brought me into the hospital and was chastised for having such a fat baby. Like, God love
she said she just brought you in for your 6-month checkup to the GP, and the GP took one look at you and said, "What are you feeding her?" This
child is the weight of a 2-year-old. So I mean, honestly, I genuinely,
and like, mom was just breastfeeding.
Yeah, and I genuinely feel like
there was no food going into that.
So you know what? This is not my fault. I've struggled with this my entire life. It's not my fault, right?
You know what? That actually does make me, because like, whenever you've gone on a diet, you go on such low calorie diets. This now all makes sense to me. Like, there's literally no food going into your gob and you're putting on weight.
Thank you, Rosemary. Yes, but it's true, right?
No, but it's very unlucky. It's very unfortunate.
So recently I joined that
like,
NOOM.
In this world we live in.
NOOM, NOOM.com, right? Whatever it's called. NOOM, and it's like...
Oh my God. A disclaimer, not an advertiser. The way you said that.
No, but I mean, like, I joined this, but in case anybody was like, what's she saying? NOOM. NOOM.com, right? NOOM, not Noon, NOOM. But like, I thought it was helpful, but like, it was just another Weight Watchers. It's like, they're all the same thing, right? I've been on every Weight Watchers in every country, as I think I mentioned before, but it was interesting because it tells you like how many calories, and it was only at the 850, 900 calorie that I actually lost any weight. And this was me, still being relatively active. Now, I'm not going to pretend that I'm like out there jogging, but like doing, not lying down flat on my back. I'd like to talk about the time, Dad, you gave Dad the pedometer. Could you talk about that?
Oh my God. Yeah. Do you remember when, like, it was probably 20 years ago now when pedometers
It was not
first
20
came out.
years ago.
I think it was, because I was about 14.
It was only 15 years ago. You're making me feel really old.
I think you were still at home.
I was not at home.
Anyway,
I was shocked abroad.
Okay, fine. Listen, you were shocked abroad was 15 years ago.
That's wine pouring.
Does that really matter?
Pouring in your absence, in your honor.
So pedometers had just come out, and they were really being promoted by the health service as a way of measuring activity levels and like making sure that you're up to scratch. And the goal for each day was 10,000 steps. And I think I had taken it one day, and I think I had walked. It was when I worked in Stephen's Green, and I had walked from Houston to Stephen's Green and back that day, like determinedly, because I knew I was wearing this pedometer. So I was like, today's going to be a good day. And I only clocked up something like 8,000 steps. I was shocked. So then I gave it to Dad the next day, going, I wonder what Dad will do. And Dad at the time was working in this kind of steel making factory in Ballymount, and he would get up every morning, he would drive to work, he would work there all day, and he would drive home. When he took it home the next day, he had done 872 steps.
So, excuse me, are you joking? I told everybody 87 steps. Are you joking?
No, it was 872.
870.
He did 87 steps. It'd be like from here to the bathroom.
That's literally Dad. He got up out of his lazy boy. He walked down the stairs.
He doesn't sleep in his lazy boy.
He likes to do the most loping steps he can to eliminate any excess energy. Yes, 100%. He
likes to be very efficient.
He then drove to the factory. He then got out 4 steps between the factory and the door. He then got back in 4 more steps. He stood around. He drank coffee. He potentially rotated in a circle 2 more steps. He got back in the van. He drove home.
He has to have gone to the toilet
told
at
the
least
whole
twice.
world 87 steps. I guarantee you told me 87 steps. This is now mortifying that like this is now going to be out there in the world, and I have lied to people. 87 steps. I'm going to get this from Dad.
I'm pretty sure it was 872.
I'm so annoyed with you right now.
The true point of this is, Beatrice, the daily aim was 10,000.
I think doing 872 is not as bad as you seem to think it is. But you know what? Therein potentially lies my problem.
Yeah, you're like, 872 steps is grand. You should check your health app right now and see how many steps you did today. Although you don't carry your iPhone around, so it won't be accurate. What I was wondering is, how would you say, if somebody asked you, like, honestly, how do you feel about your body today, now, age 41? What would you say?
I would say, you bitch, do not bring up the fact that I'm 41 ever again. I think it's just really hard to like separate how do you feel. I mean, it's not about how do you feel about it today, right? How do I feel about it today is I look at it today and I think about all the great things that it's done, etc. Like everybody says in every magazine, and I go, could care less. Like, that's not what I think. Yes, great. It's done great things, genuinely. But I also I still have this.
Are you basically just, I just want to clarify, you're just talking about your kids, right? Because like you're acting like you climbed Everest.
Oh my God. I have basically climbed the maternal Everest. I have 4 fucking kids, you bitch.
4 times.
Yeah, I had natural births. Oh wait, no, I didn't. I watched Smothered and they're not considered natural. I had an epidural every single time, as much as I could. Multiple epidurals, because every single time my redheaded body absorbed every single bit of anesthetic, and I had to have it multiple times. So I've had 8 epidurals and 4 kids. And yes, I feel like I've climbed the maternal Everest. And the first time I had major infections and therefore was so in pain. Yes, you know what? TMI, we'll talk about this again. But yes, I've climbed the maternal Everest and you're welcome. But that's not what I was talking about, okay? I was about to go back to being a teenager and say that I don't think yourself, in my own, I don't think you are. I shouldn't like speak for everybody else. My own self-image is tied up, I think, less with how I have been in the last 20 years, much more so with how I was in the first 20 years, quite genuinely. Like, and I actually wonder if most people are like this, and maybe they're not.
Well,
but I genuinely wonder.
My therapist would say yes.
Yeah, I really feel like I have a lot of friends who were extremely skinny all their teenage and preteen and like, you know, those formative years. And who now could be like a lot heavier or a lot like bigger, or, you know, and it's not all about weight, but like who just are not the people that they were back then, but who behave exactly like that.
Who might be,
but who have that level of confidence.
Who might be like softer, who might be less fit, who might be less sporty.
But who still have, but their level of confidence, their behavior, their like persona is that 16-year-old. And I feel like I was totally fucked because I was such a in my mind, and in reality, I would have to be fair. I was such a you know, I was not society's idea of an attractive, or my idea. I was not an attractive 16-year-old or a 12-year-old or an 8-year-old, right? I've always been like extremely massively tall. Not now, obviously, like now you know what I mean? Everybody's the same height, but like back then, super tall, the tallest
everybody's
person.
the same height.
Well, you know what I mean? Like everybody's
I know
an
what you
adult
mean.
height,
I know what
right?
you mean. In school, you were like,
in primary
super tall.
school.
Yeah, I know
Thanks,
what you mean.
Rosemary. Everybody's the same height. Not literally.
I literally was like, oh my God, she's losing her mind. She thinks everyone averages out when they get older. What's wrong with her?
This is
she's still taller than me. Is she not noticed?
Sister, everybody's the same height. They're not. I'll have you know they're not. Thanks. No, what did I explain to you today?
Everything,
Rosemary. So many things. I can't even get over it. Like,
no,
Rosemary has a problem with when I say what, as in what exclamation mark. You know, shocked voice. Rosemary goes, "Oh, well, let me explain to you. That means orange juice comes in a can." Like, no. I understood that part. I'm more like, why? My question is why. Why didn't you say why?
Honestly,
why didn't you say why?
I don't think this is my fault. I think this is from living with Mom for a year, and literally when she says what, she means what?
Don't blame Mom.
I can't hear you. What?
Don't blame. That's really unfair. That's very belittling of you.
Listen, I just wanted to say when you were 16,
I love you. Mom.
Hashtag favorite child. You may not have been an you may not have been considered an attractive 16-year-old girl. You just said this. But you would have been considered a relatively attractive, red-headed, male 80s singer by a small cohort of people in Germany. So don't worry.
So can't even. You're lucky you're not in the same room with me right now. Anyway, I would like to go back to, so I was extremely tall, right? And Rosemary, you have that picture that Dad sent over recently where Nash, who's age 9, goes, "Is that Grandpa's brother?" No, that was me age 12. That was me age 12. What?
No, when he first was, you were 11, and what he said first was, "Is that Dad?" His dad, your husband.
Don's never been that tall. Does he have to listen to this afterwards?
Uh-oh.
Yes, sorry, Don. Don, I love you. Love you, Don. Anyway.
He may not be that tall, but he's an excellent sound engineer.
Oh my God, he's amazing. So talented and great sense of humor. Anyway, the whole point was, so, I mean, honestly, to be fair to me, right? Like, we recently watched an episode of Smothered, which, if you haven't watched it, probably don't. Like, it's what is it, TLC? It's like, it's pretty bad.
I think it's on Prime.
We keep watching it. Yeah, but I think it's a TLC TV show. Like, we keep watching it thinking like, oh, this is going to get better. It's a reality TV show about like mothers with extremely unhealthy relationships with their daughters or vice versa. And most of it is me going, oh my God, I don't think they mean that. It's not that bad. It's not that bad. But generally it is that bad. And actually it's worse. But one of them anyway, it's like, I had a really difficult upbringing because I have an enzyme problem. Was it an enzyme problem?
like an enzyme surplus maybe, or an enzyme deficiency or something.
It was
anyway,
enzymes, right?
Some enzyme thing. I
and
think
she
so,
like
yeah.
showed pictures like, by the age of 7, I looked like I was 72, or like I was 17, and like I was super tall. Now I was like, oh my God, this is literally me. And Mom never took me for tests and never twigged it. So then I asked Mom. I was like, Mom, like, how come you never actually went to get tests for me because I was so massive? And Mom goes, I brought you to the fat doctor. Right?
Not the doctor who was
I
fat,
brought you to
clear.
the fat doctor. I actually remember this.
Do you? Oh yeah, I was just about to ask. Do you remember being?
I remember being brought to the fat doctor because I remember, but I actually don't know if I knew. I think I knew why we were there, but like I think I thought we were there because I was tall versus I was fat. And I remember he was like, "Oh, if she ever wants to be a model, you're probably going to need to break her jaw because her face is extremely asymmetrical," which has stayed with me forever.
Sorry. What? If she? What?
Shut!
What made this doctor think that you might want to be a model?
Maybe he saw my pure potential.
Do you think you had just read like Judy Blume's Deenie and you were like, so I want to be a model?
No, Rosemary, I had not. I did not say anything to this guy because I was terrified and I was extremely shy at the time, if you can actually believe that. I was extremely shy at the time, and Mom brought me in and Mom was like, hey, and he said, if you want to be a model, I mean, basically what he was saying was like, if you want to be a model, like break your face and get another face because like you're not about to be a model. It's the reality of this. In fact, now that I think about it, like break your face into and reset it because like you're not about to be a model. And then he goes, I also think your chin, like it looks like you have goiter, which has always led me to like extreme neck paranoia, which anybody...
Sorry, can I actually point out, I have had not one, not two, but 3 strangers reach out to me on Instagram stories and message me directly and say, hey, I hope you don't, and they've always been very sensitive, hope you don't mind me saying this, I work as a nurse or a pharmacist. I think one of them was even a doctor and was like, I think you might have goiter.
I don't mean to be rude, Rosemary, but like, I hope you don't have goiter. But like, I genuinely don't have goiter.
Because I immediately went to my doctor and was like, do I have goiter?
Rosemary, my neck is like definitely...
Is that why my neck looks like this?
A little bit more slender than yours now. Like, I don't have goiter. I'm sorry, Rosemary. I hope you don't.
I mean, I know that's true, but I've never heard you admit it.
Yes, you have. And I hope you don't have goiter. Okay? You have. You just have not. You have refused to listen to me admitting it. I hope you don't have goiter. I hope neither one of us has goiter. Anyway, so I need to get my face broken. I think
having goiter would be a great excuse for this neck.
I need to break my face. I have goiter on my neck, but there's nothing he can do except put me on a low-calorie diet, right? So Mom puts me on the low-calorie diet.
I honestly feel like this doctor was delusional. Like, he may as well have said to you, if she wants to be a jockey, she might want to shave a few inches off. Like,
I mean, in fairness, I do think Mom could potentially have like she could not always be like whipping up dessert straight after dinner, right? Even Don is always horrified. Don is horrified by this. Don's always like, Claire, I need at least 2 hours between like dinner and dessert. And Mom's always like, what are you talking about? Bring the dessert on immediately. Right, so like she finishes the shepherd's pie and she wants her like apple crumble right now.
She loves to whip up dessert, and then right when you've just finished dessert, she likes to make a cup of tea and then produce sliced cake.
Oh yeah, 100%.
My ex-boyfriend used to always be like, "What is wrong with your mom?"
So maybe this is actually not just Don, right? This is the whole world. Except, and we didn't realize this was not normal because we were led to believe that dinner entailed.
We were too busy scoffing.
Yes, exactly. Dinner entailed this plus pineapple upside down cake plus apple crumble, right? So actually now I'm like, this is Mom's fault. So anyway, so on it goes, and then I go to get my uniform fitted, and Frances Mallon, who's like one of my favorite people and who's like actually listening, I was like, oh, I loved the podcast. Is she going to love this? Was like one of my worst memories ever when I went into, because she used to have the uniforms for school, was like, took Mom aside and whispered something to her, and I was like, what's she whispering? This one's gorgeous? No, she was whispering, I have no clothes.
If she wants to be a model.
Yeah, if she wants to be a model, she's going to have to go to the big Tom Thumb. What's it called? The big, and what's it called? What does your friend call it?
In Sex and the City, they called it the Big and Tall.
Oh, the
horse
Big and
store.
Tall. Not the horse. No, Rosemary, that's not what I meant. The Big and Tall teenage store. But thanks. Yeah, the Big and Tall store. And so I had to go to the Big and Tall store, which was only open like once a month, and I had to go to the Big and Tall store and get my clothes fitted, and it was so upsetting and demeaning.
What's interesting about you saying that you feel like your ideas of your body are kind of cemented in your teenage years is that in my teenage years, I feel like my views on my body really changed, or like my body changed a lot as well. So like when I was in, say, 6th class, I would have been, I think, like average or thin. And then when I got to kind of maybe second year in secondary school, I suddenly thought I was fat, or I felt like I was a lot fatter than my peers.
No, I mean, I hate to be the voice of reality here, but like you were super skinny up until about 6th year.
I felt like 6th year was a highlight for me.
Oh no, like what I'm saying is like, but my point is like you were super skinny way beyond 2nd year. Like you were super skinny. You were thin and skinny all the way up. I perceive you as super body positive. Like when did you, like, because I mean, all my life you've always been the thin member of the family, right? You've always been super thin. So like, why did it become an issue for you?
I never thought of myself as being super thin. I mean, when I was too young to think about it, I didn't think about it. And like, I definitely remember between the two of us that I felt like I was the thin one and you were the fat one. Because, I mean, I don't mean to laugh, but
you're
like,
right.
because you were the one who was on a diet and who was talking about it and thinking about it. And then I think when I got into my teens, I started to talk about it and think about it more, probably as I hit puberty. And I started to put on weight, like in a way that was very natural. But to me, I was suddenly like, oh my God, I'm getting fat. And I like joined Weight Watchers and like went on my first diet when I was about 14 and had been kind of dieting on and off. But I think when I started weight training, which is such a cliche, like when I discovered strength training, it was the first time that I had ever figured out a way to use my body in a way that didn't embarrass me. Because anytime I'd ever tried to do any sport, I was actually watching your son diving into the pool today.
Oh my God, I literally thought you were about to say you're watching me do something. My blood ran cold.
No. I was watching your son, who's 9, Nash, learning to dive today and how unself-conscious he was about it. And he was so brave and just like diving straight in. And diving was always one of the things that kind of made me feel really nervous. And I think a big part of it was because I felt like my body wasn't cooperating with me. Because I felt like it was too cumbersome and too big. And like, even now, if I think about diving, I'm like, no, like my body's not for diving. And I think a lot of physical sports that I tried, I felt really self-conscious about what I looked like doing them.
But I mean,
and weight training was the first thing that I ever tried that actually being bigger made me better at it.
I mean, honestly, like,
and I think that was when things started to kind of switch in my head a little bit.
Well, just even being a member of Weight Watchers seems to me to be, you know, a brave. I mean, this sounds ridiculous, right? But like, you have to acknowledge that you want to lose weight, you want to do whatever, right? Like, and I always was super scoffing of Weight Watchers in Ireland. Like, I'm not joining that. Like, you know, I'm not going down to the community centre on a Friday afternoon. And the funny thing that I always thought was like really ridiculous was that like every time my friends, not the whole world, but like would go and join Weight Watchers, and then every time they did the weigh in on like a Thursday or a Wednesday, they would then immediately go and get their takeaway so they could have their super splurge evening and then diet for the rest of the week. And I was like, so ridiculous, right? Like, so.
God, I used to do the exact same thing.
I think everybody did.
Every single week. I used to do the exact same thing. So great.
And then when I moved to Paris, I was like, I got to get this weight under control. Even though I like, to your point, when I got to Paris, by the time I got to Paris and by the time I got to Milan, like I was much thinner. You know, my weight problem was much more an Irish problem. Like I mean, a problem I had in Ireland, and like I took control, like went on a diet and blah, blah, blah. So boring, right? In my entire life. But
you also love a salad. So like you're actually like pretty good at eating healthily, especially when it's hot. I think much more than I am.
Is very much an exaggeration. Like can tolerate a salad. I remember one time I was on the subway with this group of Italian people, and one of them was on the phone to her boy. She's like, "Oh, I'm gonna get home. I'm gonna have like I genuinely remember this. She was like, I'm gonna have a load of tiny little tomatoes, a load of delicious little asparagini. We're gonna have all these little cipollini olivi. We're gonna have loads of little, I can't wait for my delicious salad." And I was like, oh my God, if I could ever be this person, I would be so happy. And yet I've never been that person. But yes, I would not. I think I'm more likely to actually skip a meal than to eat a deliciously healthy meal is probably more likely. But anyway, when I moved to Paris, I joined Weight Watchers with my friend. And I remember one day I went along we went on a Saturday morning, and I went along, and on the way up the road, it was down these little steps on a tiny little, side road. And I was on my way into the meeting, and this totally extremely handsome French dude walking alongside, like in the opposite direction, like walking, toward me. And he turns around just as we got to the door. Just as I got to the door, I was about to go down the, like I was about to jump down the steps towards my, diet haven. And he goes, Weight Watchers, ole fatty. And I went, and I literally was like, fatties, tous les fatties, and like threw up my shoulders.
Oh my God, you treacherous
Oh my God,
bitch.
Entirely. Like, do not trust me ever. I like kept walking till I got to the end of the road with my friend, turned around to make sure this like extremely hot dude was gone. And then
But the extremely hot bigot was gone.
The extremely hot bigot. Exactly. Doubled back on myself and like ran down the stairs to understand all the tips on how to lose weight. Like, what the hell? But I mean, if that did not tell me everything I needed to know, like, hey, he does not count you. Not that my entire, self-perception is based on men, but like, this individual does not count you as one of those people, or he would not. But I mean, I think my entire perception was so skewed by working in fashion that there was just no, there was no talking to me. I probably was. In fact, I look at pictures, I'm like, I was extremely thin, but there was no talking to me. And that's the thing about, I think that's the thing about all of us. Like, we all look back at photos of ourselves and we're like, oh, we look great, we look thin. You can't enjoy it in the moment.
No, although I do think that I mean, and this is another cliche, that like, now that I'm in my mid-30s, closer to 40.
50.
Closer to 40 than 30,
right,
not 50.
Right. Closer to 50 than 10. Closer to 50 than 10.
Closer to 50 than 20.
Oh God, closer to... Oh my God, you're so... My sister's so old. Oh God, I can't do maths.
You're closer to 50 than you are to 32, so...
Oh my God, I'm probably close to... Well, hold on. I'm closer to 60 than I am to 20. That's alarming.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Anyway, listen. Look, that's hardly the point. We could sit here doing really, really poor maths all night. What I was going to say was, now that I'm in my mid-30s, I have finally reached not like I wouldn't. I try to be body positive in the way I talk about my body and bodies in general, especially online, because I have a kind of a relatively big platform, right? But in my own personal opinions of my body, I think I have achieved something a little bit closer to body neutrality. I don't look at my body in the mirror and go, oh my God, that is gorgeous. But I don't look at myself in the mirror anymore and think, ugh. At least not all the time.
But do you think, like, is it, it's a bit like this question about happiness. What is our what's the real base level for happiness? Like, we've been brought up to believe that we should expect to be delighted with everything the whole time. Or have we? Magazines would, would lead you to believe like your base level, as we said about Goldie Hawn. Goldie Hawn's base level for happiness is pretty high. Like, our base level for everything
for happiness
is pretty high. But like, is that actually realistic, or like, are we being tricked? Should we just be like? I read the other day that like the average person's IQ is average, which is going to be shocking to nobody except me, right? I was like, oh, well, that actually makes sense.
Do you think it was going to be lower?
No.
Did you think it was going to be low or high?
No, I was more like, I wonder what the average person's IQ is like, which actually means like maybe my IQ is pretty low, right? But I mean, the average person probably looks average. Like, but we are all led to believe that, hey, if you use these eyebrow tips and this tip and use this with your teeth and this with your hair and this with your body, you can be more. Can you be? You can be your best self. And is that like, also, what does even above average mean in terms of like aesthetics? Should we not all just be like, hey, you can be your best self, and your best self is your nicest self? You know what I mean?
That is very after school special of you. I was not expecting that.
Oh, really?
Well, not that you're not nice, but that was just a very like zen positive idea. But you know what? I used to always think that, to your point about happiness, I used to always think that if I could find a way to achieve happiness, or if not happiness, then at least contentedness in every aspect of my life, then I would stop eating because I was sad, or because I was angry, or because listen, I can like eat because I'm itchy. Like, literally, it's not even about happy or sad, but that if I could reach this kind of elusive state of happiness or contented neutral, that I would automatically lose weight and be a size 10 forever.
I know. Yeah,
do you know what I mean? That I had it in my head that a size 10 was the default healthy, happy weight for everyone. When actually, as I've got older, I'm like, of course that's not true.
So I thought, like, with both of us having worked in, so many places, that like, you worked in a lot of fashion magazines and I've worked in fashion, companies, that would be, we probably have a lot of examples between us of, examples of how people have commented on bodies, just positive, negative.
Yeah, but before we get to workplaces, I just want to tell you about one Weight Watchers meeting that I went to. I used to go to Weight Watchers on Ainger Street, which was in the Whitefriar, I think it was the Whitefriar Community Centre, and it was amazing because it was just like full of real characters, And I used to go with 2 of my friends, and we loved our Weight Watchers leader, Mary, who actually to this day, and I've seen a good few Weight Watchers leaders, is my absolute favourite. But she used to come up with a different story. Do you know the way they used to do the meeting each week where they'd be like, you know, this week we're going to talk about calories, or this week we're going to talk about fibre, or this week we're going to talk about like fizzy drinks or whatever. And they'd have a different theme. Did they do that in France and Italy as well?
Maybe, but I barely understood them. Like, I actually really wish I'd gone to Weight Watchers Mary. She sounds amazing. I just remember the one in France was convinced the whole time that like the reason we were overweight was because we didn't drink enough. We mistook hunger for thirst. She would the whole time be like, "You're thirsty." I'm like, no, I'm starving. She's like, "You just need to drink more water." No. I need to eat a sandwich. No, you're thirsty.
Well, Mary used to start every single meeting with like a different kind of anecdote or like a colourful story. And one week she started telling us, like, started off with this bit, and she was like, "Now, girls, you know how like there's a new celebrity, I've heard about the most amazing new celebrity diet, I read about it in whatever, Now magazine or whatever." She's like, "Do you want to hear about it? You lose 10 pounds in the first week." So we're all like, "Yes, Mary." And she goes, "It's the most amazing diet. So you wake up in the morning and you have a small bowl of cold porridge, right? Small bowl of cold porridge. And then for your lunch, you have a medium bowl of cold porridge. And then for your dinner, guess what you have? You have a large bowl of cold porridge.
The Goldilocks diet.
And this one, well, you're ruining the punchline now. This one in the front row puts up her hand and goes, "Mary, they're not celebrities, Mary. They're bears."
She's right.
And there was actually another time. Oh my God, it was so good. There was another time Mary started telling us about how even though bananas are in the Weight Watchers book, the Weight Watchers book is 1.5, not all bananas are created equal. And she took out 3 bananas of varying sizes. Yeah. She held up the first banana. And she goes, "This looks so serious. This, girls, is a 1.5 point banana." And then she picks up another slightly bigger banana. At which point, myself and Claire started laughing so hard there were tears streaming down her face. She was a slightly bigger banana, and she goes, "This is a 2.5 point banana." And then she produces this other banana like a magician, like a rabbit. Produces other bananas like the size of a fucking wine bottle. And she picks it up and she goes, "This banana." And another woman in the front row goes, "Jesus, Mary, that banana must be on steroids." That was a 5-point banana, she told us.
Oh my God.
A 5-point banana, can you imagine?
I tell you, we went from a 1.5 to a 3.5 to a 5-point banana where there's no in between.
A 1.5 to a 2.5 to a 5 point.
Oh my God.
She must have gone to several supermarkets to find that. It was obscene.
Amazing. Oh, amazing. Actually
it was so
amazing.
good.
Hey, sleepyhead. Why so sleepy? Oh, it's because your mattress is a bag of potatoes and scrap metal. You should try a Nectar mattress. With award-winning layers of comfort, you can sleep easy knowing you got incredible value. Mattresses start at just $499, and you get hundreds of dollars in accessories thrown in, as well as a 365-night home trial and a forever warranty. Go to nectarsleep.com.
But sorry. On to more serious topic. The workplace.
Oh yeah, the workplace. But you were going to tell us about your experiences in the workplace, because yours are more, well, actually no, mine are, I mean, they're both pretty personal. Like, I think I've observed a lot. You know, I worked in a company once where we did up to a size 14, which is about a size 10, 12, maybe UK and UK Ireland. And I think there was a conversation around like,
No. A 14 UK Ireland is a 10, 12 American.
Oh, well, okay. Well, 14 then was the max American. But I mean, you and I know we both disagree about these sizings, because like allegedly there's a 2 to 4 size discrepancy, but I really think that it narrows as you get bigger. Anyway.
Yeah. Allegedly an American 12 is the UK 16.
Yeah.
But an American 12, I think, is closer to a UK 12 to 14.
Yeah, that's what I think. UK 14, right?
You're right.
And it depends on where you shop, right? They're all different. And I remember like one place I worked, there was a conversation around, like a lot of people really want to wear, these clothes, but they're very small. It was like, I don't want any fat people wearing my clothes. I do not want bigger women wearing these dresses. And I was like, wow, and at the time, So this would have been 12 years ago. And like, I remember at the time being like, that is like super unwelcoming and like not necessarily broad, but like I thought of it more from a business perspective. I was like, that's like not really, you know, broadening your base. But I didn't think of it as
because it's excluding, but it's excluding such a huge portion of shoppers.
But I didn't think of it the way that we would think of it now. As like, wow, that is like really inappropriate, you know?
That's wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I did think it was, I thought it was a distasteful attitude. But I also thought it was like within the purview of the business owner to have, right? It's like, if you don't want to offer that to a broader base, that's your business prerogative. And now I kind of question that. I'm like, is it your business prerogative? Is it not? I'm not sure, right? I genuinely am not sure. Like, I think it probably is, but like there are repercussions for that too. You know, you can choose not to offer it to a broader base, but then you can choose not to be relevant, right? They're kind of like, they're not different choices, if you know what I mean. But the way it was said wasn't, I don't want to be relevant. It was more like, I don't want to be ugly was the attitude, right? And I was just like, I was so shocked at the time because I was definitely in that larger grouping. And I just felt really shocked because I literally was sitting there in this meeting where it was said, I don't want to dress you. Yeah. And I think like now, I wonder, would I say something like I was in a much more junior role, but would I say something now? Now I would say something. I would be like, but I don't think it would even be a conversation now, you know? At the time, it was a conversation. It was a topic. I was shocked, right? But it was not something I was equipped to handle at the time.
Yeah. Like, there are definitely loads of brands now, the majority of brands that still don't cater for anything above a size 14. But I agree with you that I doubt that the brand owners or the managers would be saying that in a meeting with several people.
But I also think that now
blatantly. Do you know what I mean?
Now I'm in a role like, or I'm at a level where I could say I disagree. Whether or not people listen to you at that level is a different thing. You know, I think there's an expectation. You're going to get to a certain level of people are going to listen to you. It's like, no, you're still one of 7. You're still one of 8. You're still one of 10. You know, you're not necessarily, it's still a democracy. It's still not necessarily your voice is the leading voice. So you can make your point and you can still be the only voice.
Outvoted.
Kind of
yes, exactly. Yeah.
But in this case,
I remember when I worked, I remember when I worked at one particular magazine, we used to do a naked shoot. I mean, look, I can just say it was Stellar because I think Stellar was the only magazine doing naked shoots. And I remember having a discussion where I was going, I really don't think we should retouch the images because I think if we're going to do a naked shoot. And then I remember having this conversation at a staff meeting. They were going, but if we retouch images of models and if we retouch all images so that we don't have like, so that we're kind of retouching like the wrinkle under somebody's armpit, or we're retouching so you can't see the hair, you know, the fine hair on someone's arm, and we're retouching so that skin looks slightly smoother or maybe slightly brighter, why wouldn't we also do that for our naked shoot, which happened to be one of the few shoots in a year of the magazine that included diverse bodies? And I remember thinking it was kind of an interesting discussion because I was like, on the one hand I was going, I think they should be really natural, but then I was like, well, then why am I advocating for the quote unquote normal women to be the only ones who don't get the kind of little magic wand perfection? You know what I mean?
It's funny you say that because actually a photo shoot that I worked on a couple of years ago was one of the first ones for the company that I was working with, was one of the first ones that featured diverse sizes for the models, right? And it had been a massive push to get them there, you know, like, hey, we really need this, like it's a big deal. And by the time we ended up with the models, like they were nobody was massive, you know, like it wasn't like, oh my goodness, this is like super shocking. It was more like, oh, this girl is maybe a size, I'm talking UK 16 versus a size 12, you know?
Yeah.
And so this company had been pretty well known for, not well known, but like by the time you got to the photos, it was hard. Like they were very well, you know, very retouched. It was very brightened because it was supposed to look very happy and very, you know, enthusiastic. And the models themselves, all the cellulite had been taken off them. And I was like, and they had been like, their waists had been shaped. And it was kind of bizarre because you think about this as being a very intentional thing. When you read about this, you know, when celebrities say like, oh, my waist was reshaped and it's like, it seems really malicious, you know, it seems really deliberate. But I actually think it was really just more part of the industry. It was more part of, like, it was more the expectation, you know. So when I went back and I was like, hey guys, the whole point of hiring this girl who was a bigger girl was for her to be a bigger girl. The more the real point, and there was another girl who was like slightly older, like, but I mean by older, I mean like she was 35, she was 40, she had a couple of like lines around her eyes, and she had some freckles, and she was 16, very charming, you know. I was like, the whole point of hiring these guys was to have their authentic selves shine through, and you kind of glossed over them because like all the freckles were, you know, color corrected, as they say, like inverted commas. All of the wrinkles around her eyes had been taken out, and they were like, oh, well, we just assumed. And it was funny because it occurred to me that like you can have a message that is superficial, and it's like, I mean, superficial at an internal level. It's like, hey, we're going to do this, we're going to hire these models, we're going to hire this, and like everybody's super gung-ho, but it doesn't get to the retouchers, it doesn't get down to, you know, the internal teams of like, we're going to, this is what we're doing. You know, people can be like super on board. Yeah. And by the time it gets out to the bigger audience, it can be really diluted and kind of made more mainstream. And it's not necessarily always
kind of glossed over.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily even always the company's fault. It's like they had great intentions at the beginning, but they didn't communicate them well. They didn't. And everybody would be like, well, it's really not a difficult thing to do. But like, it kind of is sometimes. And I felt like in this case, you know, everybody turned around and was like, oh, we'll fix it. And everybody fixed it. But it was kind of interesting to me that every single individual involved, like nobody needed to be directed. Nobody was told, Photoshop this thigh, you know, fix these wrinkles. Yeah. Their expectation was just like, I mean, this is our norm of beauty. I need to fix it.
Yeah. Like whether you're talking about media or marketing, there is such an expectation of perfection on images of, I mean, everybody, but particularly women.
Yes, but I also think like the funny thing is that I don't think any of these people who were spoken to, like who were told, none of them would go home and say about their spouses or their partners, you should be less wrinkly, have more, you know, it's like, it's a very artificial. No, of course not.
It's a totally different thing.
It is, yeah. It's a very artificial world. And like, how do you start to communicate to people like, hey, what we're trying to communicate is a real aesthetic. We're trying to communicate a real world vibe. And people kind of who have been historically in this environment for a long time struggle to understand like what you do in your spare time now. It's what we're trying to get out to the world. Whereas before it was like what you're doing in your spare time is what we're trying to avoid getting out to the world, you know?
Well, yeah. I mean, I feel like there used to be an attempt to make more of aspirational and like almost to separate the aspirational more from the everyday, that you wanted things to be super glossy and super like, you know, that's what I want. Whereas now I feel like we're almost trying to bring them closer together and to break down those walls or those veneers between what's real and what's in the media or what's on Instagram or what's in magazines, or like that's kind of what we should be trying to do, even though I know that not everybody is. But that's kind of the idea, you know what I mean, of like representing more reality.
But it's hard, right? Because I mean, I can speak from the many companies that I've worked at, like so few, like everybody wants to look real, like, and I'm using inverted commas quotes in my hands, like, but they really mean like beautifully real, you know, unnaturally real, like gloriously and you know what, real. That's kind of my point about the nude imagery when I was at Stellar, that like everybody wants to look real, but I actually think probably a lot of those women, if they'd posed for those photographs and we hadn't glossed them up slightly, we hadn't, and like there wasn't any major airbrushing done, like we very much wanted them to look like themselves, but also to kind of go, if you were that woman, what would you want us to kind of smooth a little bit, what would you want us to kind of, you know, what flyaways would you want us to get rid of, but maybe
the
problem is
like everybody does want to look their quote unquote best self.
That, you know, magazines are trying to airbrush Cindy Crawford, and I'm like, don't airbrush Cindy Crawford, you know, airbrush me a tiny bit to look remotely closer to Cindy Crawford. Right? It's like she doesn't need airbrushing. I need the airbrushing, like to go 1% more in her direction, and like, you know, she's grand going 1% more in my direction, right? Because like I genuinely think like the expectations are so like seriously skewed. Because I mean, one of the companies that I worked at, I remember my boss was obsessed. I mean, this doesn't even make sense, with people's kneecaps, and she would always be like, oh my God, her knees are so extremely fat. Every time we had a photo shoot, she'd be like, well, Beatrice, I mean, it looked okay, but her kneecaps were extremely fat. Like they looked extremely fat.
I'm literally you should see me gazing down at my kneecaps.
I know. Now, like, I mean, honestly, she's given me an amazing...
I've never thought about the fat on my kneecaps.
I have done nothing since except like worry about my kneecaps since whatever that year that was, like 2005. You know, I'm like, wow.
I was going to say 1988.
I mean, I actually went to a doctor because I had back problems, and more of that later. But at one point I was like, yeah, I'm aware that my legs, you know, they don't curve inward, they curve outward because of whatever, like in my back, and like therefore my kneecaps. And he's like, very unusual that you're aware of that. I'm like, you have no idea. Like literally, you have no idea how much time I have spent worrying about my kneecaps. And she used to go off and have like her kneecap fat sucked out of her once a season. Yeah,
What?
yeah. It was always there, her kneecap fat.
Oh my God, they're going to be so sore. Your
Yes,
kneecap fat.
but genuinely, like she was always like, the fit model coming, her kneecaps, her shoulder blades.
Oh my God, I didn't even know.
And
this
I would
was
be like,
kneecaps was when we had to worry about.
like, I feel like I've lost 10 pounds since the last time we saw each other, but like now I gotta worry about my kneecaps. But it's like women's magazines,
she's
you
only-
know,
she's
like
only
every
looking at my
time you think
kneecaps.
you're grand, they have something else for you to worry about.
Well, there's something
Yeah.
else. But you know what? I am aware now that we've whittled on for quite a long time. But I just wanted to ask on the subject of average looking and average sized women in advertising and in marketing, I find that a really difficult hurdle to kind of get over. Like there's a lot of e-commerce sites, especially in the US now, that I've noticed that you can select which model you want to look at. So you can say, I want to look at the model who is 5'7" and who's a size 16, right? Which would be what I am. And 9 times out of 10, when I see the jeans I want on a model who's 5'7" and a size 16, I'm like, oh,
Well, I
don't
have
want
to
them
say,
anymore.
you're obviously
Because
you're
I somehow-
obviously a sizes bitch.
But I somehow have it in my head that like when I buy these jeans, I'm going to look closer to the size 8 model. Like obviously it's just this, like it's this really deep conditioning in my head that's like, it would be more beautiful for your legs to look like size 8 legs than
No,
for them
I
to look like size
100%
16
agree
legs.
with you. Like I log on, I see this dress, I think glorious. I see the dress on the slightly larger girl, I go, oh. And it's not that I think hideous. I think that dress looks great on her, right? I think she looks great with that dress. And then I think, do I want to look like that? Like, and in a way, I think it actually probably prevents a lot more returns because
Yeah.
I think
I think if I had been able to see that on ASOS,
prior to this, I
there's
think
99% of the things wouldn't have gone back or wouldn't have been
prior
ordered.
to this, I think that I would have ordered the dress, no hesitation. Now I think it gives me an element of caution. I think, that's probably the reality of what I look like. Am I okay with that? And in a lot of times I am, but I would have to say mainly with jeans, I'm like, I'm not okay with that. I wonder if that has slowed the sales of jeans for not size
those
2
brands
models.
that
Yeah,
do
because
that.
I genuinely go like
Yeah.
everything else, dresses, etc. I'm like, oh, yeah, you know, reality strikes. I have to be realistic. Like that's what she looks like. That's what I'm going to look like. It's like prior to this, like the clothes would come, I would put them on. I go, oh my God. I'd be like, let me get somebody else in the room to like tell me that I'm joking. And then Dom would come in and be like, oh, but what is this? You look awful. I'm like, what the hell? Like literally, okay, thanks. I didn't need to. I told you the other day I bought a jumpsuit. I bought a one-shoulder jumpsuit, and it's like a jersey.
It's a risky move.
Well, no, you approved. It's a jersey.
I know, but one-shoulder jumpsuits are always going to be hit and miss, you know what I
It's
mean?
not the one shoulder. It's a weird saggy material. Like I put it on, I was like, oh no, this looks like I have like a large nappy on. Like it's not looking good. Diaper, large diaper jumpsuit, you know. And I was like, ugh, I can't. However, if I was this brand, if this had been on a size 14/16, I have to tell you, probably would never have bought it, right? So like they don't have that bigger size model probably for a reason. But like I think it's really tricky because like I appreciate that they're like representing, but I don't really want to know what I'm going to look like because I live in a dream of who I really am, you know? It's hard.
But you know what? I think a lot of these conundrums are because these clothes are designed on size 8 fit models. And when you design a garment for somebody who is very slim and, you know, has a certain build or maybe has like a more boyish figure, which would be the more kind of typical model, when you size that outfit up, it's not going to look the same, or it's not going to look comparable on somebody with big tits.
I would like
and
to
like,
think,
you know, bigger
I would
bum.
like to think that like grading is, you know, done in a thoughtful manner and that all of this is taken into account and depends company by company. But I really just think like the reality is, you know, things look different on different size people, and we are all accustomed to looking at them on size 6 to 8 or 4 to 6 models. And it's really shocking to see it on a model who's not that size and to go, oh,
Yeah.
That's actually what I'm going to look like. And the reality is also, it's actually not what you're going to look like, because this person's under like the most glaring of lights. You're going to be, under the most gorgeous of lights. In my case,
you're going to be at home with
you're
just
going to be under
lockdown in the
lockdown.
corner.
You're going to be
your Spanx.
You're going to have four, limoncello candle lights, and you're going to be dragging your husband into the back garden where he doesn't like to go because it's too hot, and like he doesn't even care. It's just about you. But anyway, yeah, Rosemary, I need you to look at my jumpsuit and tell me if it's okay, and we can post a picture of it later on if it is okay, and if it's not, we can still post a picture of it, because I felt like it was a little bit too baggy in the crotch, just for you.
And listen, if that isn't a perfect note to end on, I don't know what is.
I agree.
Disclaimer that we perhaps should have made at the beginning. We have no conclusions about this.
Oh, absolutely none, and zero knowledge whatsoever. However, we do still want to hear your songs, and we are planning our own next sing-along for you. We'd love to hear what you have to sing with your own sisters.
Or siblings. My friend Claire did get in touch and say that herself and her brother Niall were going to sing a tune. I think she was joking.
I think that's actually adorable. So any sibling singing...
I know, I knew you'd be delighted.
Any sibling singing is top-notch with us.
Top-notch?
Yes, Rosemary, top-notch with us.
Between that and tot, and what was the other one? Tuffy. A top-notch Tuffy totting it up. So happy with that. Beatrice, are you still there?
Deep breath as I consider my comeback. So yes, we would love to hear anything that you have to sing with a sibling, and we will put it at the end of our next podcast. And if we hear nothing, we'll have our own song to sing for you. So you've been warned.
And listen, aside from all that, sing if you want. What you really should do is go onto Apple Podcasts, give us 5 stars and leave a review, because it really helps us feel better about ourselves and helps other people find the podcast. And oh yeah, if you have any topic suggestions, we'd love those too. Wouldn't we?
We would love any ideas you have. We heard it. We heard a few. We're working on them.
Oh my god, loads.
We had a lot. We actually had a lot. Yeah.
Dating in Ireland versus dating in America.
Expat relationship.
American politics, another topic we know absolutely nothing about, but we'll probably wither on about for an hour.
Happily give you all our opinions. And anything else?
Thank you so much for listening. Anything else you'd like, you can get us on Instagram at NotWithoutMySister, or personally, I'm at Rosemary McCabe with an A in my Mac, and
I'm at Beatrice McCabe with an A in my Mac.
Not Without My Sister is produced by Liam Garrity. Sound editing and design is by Don Kirkland. Original music is also by Don Kirkland, and our original illustration is by Lindsay Nielsen.
Not Without My Sister is a member of The Warren, the home of great Irish podcasts. As is my podcast, Meet Your Maker. You'll find more great shows at thewarren.ie.